Hi, my name is Autumn Hamilton, and I'm currently finishing up my Instructional Technology Specialist program at Kennesaw State University. I'm also finishing my 13th year teaching high school English in Cherokee County, Georgia. My Capstone project focused on increasing student engagement through technology integration in problem-based learning. As we ended last year in a pandemic and needed to switch to digital learning, it quickly became evident that there was a need for professional development to assist teachers with using technology tools to engage their students remotely. However, this wouldn't be just outside of the classroom. During the 2020-21 school year, a new English language arts curriculum was going to be implemented, and I knew that teachers would need help implementing technology into a new problem-based learning curriculum. This curriculum was situated in real-world, authentic problems requiring technology to implement, and I saw that we would need to support teachers as they learned about these new technologies. As we moved to create 21st century learners, we needed to determine which tools would help us build these skills in our students. The student engagement seems to be an ongoing battle. Students blame boring, lecture-filled classrooms. Teachers blame a generation of apathetic teenagers. In a study conducted at Mountain Heights Academy, students were asked to evaluate their learning based on their perceptions of teacher engagement. Students said that they were more involved when it was their teachers that were creating the engaging learning activities. Furthermore, students need to see the relevance of an activity. Students found that repetitive assignments or those that lack relevancy decreased their personal engagement in their learning. In an Indiana University study, researchers investigated why students might resist engagement with digital tools and 21st century methods of learning. These findings are important to any school with achievement gaps, particularly students who do not fall into the white middle class mainstream. Researchers argued that there is a tie between engagement and academic success. For our students who do not know academic success as their norm, there is a marked lower engagement and disconnect. Another study found that 40% of students reported that the curricula was not relevant to their lives. Tapping into culturally responsive pedagogy and using collaboration in PBL allowed for students to find the relevancy in these activities, and they began to interact with new technologies as a means to collect and synthesize information and data to complete their assignments. Students began to stop resisting the use of new technologies, and they began to use them in ways to make the learning meaningful. While there is little doubt that today's students are surrounded by technology, it is important to consider the impact that technology has on their lives. Researchers have found that creating authentic learning environments allows students to develop an appreciation and relevance for school and learning because there are connections between what they do in the classroom and life outside the classroom. When students see value in what they are learning, they are more likely to be engaged and motivated to learn. The solution and intervention proposed to increase student engagement is to integrate technology into problem-based learning activities. These technology tools will be focused on student collaboration and inquiry skills used in conjunction with problem-based learning curricula. Originally, my plan was to work with 9th grade English language arts teachers in this process, but new schedules shifted this to working with a 10th grade team. The plan asks teachers to attend professional development sessions through professional learning communities in order to know how to choose and implement the best tool for the task and to increase comfortability with using these tools in the classroom. These sessions would be held during common planning times during the school day. Teachers would collaboratively plan, implement in their individual classrooms, and then regroup to evaluate if any changes needed to be made. The goal of this project was to prepare teachers to integrate technology into a problem-based curriculum in order to improve student engagement. Teachers would receive professional learning through PLCs to support this implementation. For this project, I worked with a 10th grade ELA PLC consisting of 4 teachers with students in honors and on-level courses. There were 4 objectives to this capstone. The first was that these 10th grade ELA teachers would meet weekly to receive training on how to implement the technology integration and planning cycle for integrating technology into PBL activities. The second objective was that 10th grade ELA teachers would collaboratively plan and implement 1 digital tool per unit. And then the third was that these teachers would meet back together weekly to assess and reevaluate the technologies that they had selected, and then to make changes when necessary. And then finally, our fourth objective was to increase the engagement of 10th grade students and their motivation in solving a problem-based learning activity. And we would measure this through a self-survey. For implementation of this capstone, I use the technology integration planning cycle, and you'll see the model that we used for each of our meetings in that process, and how we would select tools and then reevaluate as we went. I also created one-page quick guides for teachers to help them through implementation, as well as pre and post student surveys to help measure student engagement. Since ultimately the goal of this plan was to increase student engagement, I had to figure out a way to do that. And so I decided student surveys using Microsoft Forms would allow me to gauge their increased level of engagement. We would also examine student work as a PLC, as well as incorporate the teacher reflections of what they saw in their classrooms in order to evaluate this process. The first activity of the Capstone experience was to create a needs assessment survey with teachers to identify their current comfortability with using technology in their classrooms. The survey results showed that this level varied among the 4 teachers. 2 teachers identified as technology savvy, 1 identified as somewhat comfortable, and 1 said she felt she would require help to implement new technology tools. I knew from my research that teachers need support when implementing technology into literacy instruction, and that the 10th grade teachers could benefit from this practice while implementing the new English curriculum, no matter what their comfortability level was. To help us find a common place to begin, I held a professional development session for teacher implementation of the technology integration planning cycle so that we would have common terminology to use and an outline of a plan to follow for this experience. A PowerPoint presentation and a one-page introduction handout for the TIPC model were provided to the teachers in the 10th grade professional learning community. Each meeting, we would follow this agenda and follow this framework. We would first identify the instructional goals, then identify our instructional approach, and finally select a technology tool to implement. Our goal was to implement 6 different technology tools through the first semester, but we instead used 3, 1 per unit, to be able to dive deeper rather than skim the surface of what these tools could do. Teachers quickly communicated their concern that there was not enough technology resources for our entire department. So we had to plan to use technology tools that could also be used on student devices as supplements for the school provided resources. With 6 laptop carts to be shared between 14 English teachers, we would have to focus some of this early planning time on mapping out each unit so we could go ahead and reserve their laptop carts as needed. Since the major goal of this Capstone project was to increase student engagement, we administer student surveys via Microsoft Forms at the beginning and end of each unit, asking students to reflect upon their engagement and motivation in these PBL units. When surveyed at the beginning of the first unit, about 60% of our 10th grade students said they felt disengaged in their 9th grade English courses because they didn't find what they were doing relevant to their lives. As teachers, we are hopeful that the new PBL curriculum that the school district was implementing would help support this finding and lead to student engagement. We were lucky in that as a PLC, we all shared a common planning period. So we used that time to hold each of our bi-weekly meetings and followed the TIPC agenda. We began each unit by collaboratively planning the PBL lessons to utilize technologies to support student engagement. Since the PLC consisted of 2 on-level 10th grade teachers and 2 honors 10th grade teachers, we first looked at the unit's real-world situation and the 4 tasks as a larger group to identify the learning objectives. Then we split off and focused on our units in pairs since the on-level and honors units were just a little different from each other. Once we identified what our students were being asked to do in the task, we met back together as a group to identify a strategy and tool that could be used across levels. This conversation allowed us to identify which tool I would provide professional learning and support on for the unit at hand. From there, I created a one-page quick step handout for the teachers for the technology tool in that unit and offered to help co-teach lessons as a support for teachers. Only 1 on-level teacher took me up on that offer, and only once did she feel like she needed it. The other 2 teachers felt like the discussions in our PLC meetings, as well as the one-page handouts, were enough to support them as they implemented the new technologies. Teachers created and implemented their lessons based on the tool we identified in our PLC meetings during the 2 weeks in between our next meeting and ongoing throughout the unit as warranted. The first tool we used was Canva, a program purchased by the school district for student use. We first had students create a practice poster by following along with a video made by our instructional technology specialist. In her video, she walked them step by step through creating a poster from scratch. Next, students use this tool in Task 1 to create a poster for a social media audience to share their understanding of diverse cultural perspectives and myths they read in class. Teachers discuss with students the importance of graphics and wording when addressing an audience. Our hope was that teachers would see this relevance in the activity as they frequently use social media in their personal lives. With the heightened discussions around race this past summer, we also wanted them to begin to see the connections that exist across cultural divides. Students viewed their shared posts with one another, and this led to a discussion about cultural diversity. Teachers, we came back together at the next meeting to discuss and reevaluate the use of Canva for Task 1, as well as any problems faced with implementation. Teachers reported that the video provided by our RTS was useful to students, eliminating any major implementation issues. We decided to use Canva again for Task 4 when students created infographics comparing and contrasting myths they wrote from myths with other cultures. Students were familiar with the program, so we did not have to spend time training students on how to use the program again. Teachers reported that students were engaged and commented that Canva was a welcome change from PowerPoint presentations. In their post survey on engagement motivation, 72% of the 10th grade students said that using Canva helped make Task 1 more relevant and engaging. Many said they would continue or consider using the program to create something personal in their lives. We continued the same process for the next 2 units, choosing a different tool to help engage our learners. We ended the semester digitally, and so we had to kind of switch how we were modeling and implementing this technology. And we found that many of our users were not as engaged whenever they were not present in class. In completing this Capstone project, I learned a great deal about technology facilitation and leadership. This past year of enduring a pandemic showed me more than ever that I must remain flexible and be willing to stay positive as I help others navigate the unpredictable. Teaching teachers how to implement new technology brings many challenges. There's a large learning curve for some teachers, and some teachers are comfortable just doing what they've always done. It can be challenging to navigate that line as I try and motivate teachers to step out of their comfort zone for the good of all students. I learned that I must first lead discussions about our personal feelings surrounding technology integration. Having a place where teachers feel comfortable being honest about how they feel is the first step towards changing beliefs about how we use technology. The use of student surveys allowed me to determine how technology integration engaged learners as they navigated authentic real-world learning experiences. Overall, I would assess that technology did increase student engagement, but I also realized that technology fatigue is a real thing. I also informally surveyed teachers to see if they felt that the professional learning, or PLC, the one-page handouts, and other materials I provided them were useful, or if they still felt like it was just another thing on their plates. But all the teachers reported that these experiences were meaningful because they were able to implement right away, and they saw the engagement of their students increase. Overall, this experience was a positive one that put technology in the hands of our students to help them be explorers and creators. Teachers have additional research-based strategies they can use as they approach future units and learning experiences. I want to thank all the teachers and faculty members that helped me create this capstone, that took the time and took that leap to try something new as we challenge both ourselves and our students.